Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Wolverine.com postgame show live from Blue Lion Fitness in downtown Ann Arbor. Well, not downtown. We're on the outskirts, but we're in Ann Arbor. Anthony Broome here with Ryan Van Bergen, as we are every week after Michigan games. And unlike last week, we have a very impressive win to talk about, Ryan. Michigan takes down Washington by a score of 24-7. Listen, when you come on and question the things that we did last week, in a vacuum like that, those are valid criticisms and things that we observed in real time. The only thing that matters after that is the response. And there were reports this week of it being an emotionally charged week coming off of the USC game. Some whispers of, I won't even say discontent, just, when you come off a loss, a lot of things get questioned and a lot of guys challenge each other. And today, if we're going to come on a show last week, if we're going to come on shows throughout the week and question Wink Martindale and the Michigan defense, the absolute first thing we have to do today is shout them out for what was a defensive masterclass. You'll hold a really good Washington offense to 7 points, 249 yards of offense. Damond Williams had 536 yards of offense last week. It was incredible. He had 3 picks today, minus 19 yards rushing, only 209 yards passing. They took Jonah Coleman out of the game. And then offensively, there were some mistakes that were made, some points left on the field. But late, when your defense gives you those turnovers, you found a way to cash in. You hit the accelerator when it mattered the most and got what wound up being, after 60 minutes, a mostly complete and impressive turning of the page.
The nail was hit right on the head when you talk about the response after the USC game and the trip out to California. Talk about a tale of two different teams. I think offensively, defensively, both units, you saw a different product on the field today than what you saw out in California last weekend. And that, to me, you have to give a lot of credit to Sharon Moore, got to give a lot of credit to Chip Lindsey, and a lot of credit to Wink Martindale right off the bat, because those guys had to have done something collectively amongst themselves to get these guys ready to play a football game. I don't want to bring in another team as an example, but you think about Penn State, and 2-3 weeks ago, they're playing the number 1 team in the country in double overtime. They go to UCLA, or they have UCLA come to them, they lose. Then they go to Northwestern and lose, and their season's in shambles. A 2-loss, 3-loss team, this point in the season, can easily fall apart if there's no leadership, if there's no coaching, and kind of a circling of the wagons. And so we're going to get into detail about the analysis of today's game, but I think it's important to give credit where it's due with respect to the turnaround, the leadership, getting these guys to bounce back and be ready to play. There's a lot of football left to be had. There's a lot of things that can happen. Everything's on the table for us. So really excited to see the product that was on the field today versus what we saw 7 days ago.
I have a $4.99 super chat from our guy Shane Johnson, who says Bryce Underwood is special. He's a bigger Lamar with a stronger arm. It's not a 1-to-1 comp, but hey, we're feeling good today. We'll take it. 2028 number 1 pick. Imagine him with 2 more deep threats. Larry Ellison, write that check. And Jordan, a typical Ohio beast. Yeah, Jordan Marshall today, 25 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown. We'll do our housekeeping here in a bit, but while we're on the topic of the response, last week, you looked at the Michigan defense and there was miscommunication. There were guys that weren't lined up correctly. And by the sounds of it, a pretty emotional, heated sort of film study early this week with guys sort of calling it out. And I want to go in the locker room for a second with you, using the resource we have here as you as a former player. When you come off a game like that, first off, the first thing I'll say is, 1, are these types of emotional sort of responses normal in film study after that? And 2, what sort of benefit can that have if you apply the energy the right way?
I think it all boils down to leadership. It's a topic that I feel like gets brushed over more and more with NIL and looking at the specifics of what a player can maybe bring to your team. But the chemistry of your locker room is going to be maintained, and your culture is going to be groomed and cultivated by the seniors and the upperclassmen that are in your locker room. So you think about Bredesen, you think about Hadi, some of these guys that are veterans that have seen a lot of Michigan football and know what the standard is at University of Michigan. And I think of myself in that same position as a captain of my team, as a 2-loss team, with everything still out there. The message would have been exactly what Sharon came to the presser and said was, guys, there's no reason to think that we can't perform and still get what we want out of this season. It won't happen if we continue about it in the same manner and way that we went about it before USC. We have to do a better job in preparation. We have to have a better Monday through Friday. That's the only way that the product on Saturday is going to be what we want it to be. So show up on Monday with your work jacket or whatever your euphemism might be, and make sure that we get that done. And you got to tip your cap. I have no reason to doubt that the leaders of this team, and some of them are freshmen, but the leaders of this team got them on the right path, and hopefully they can maintain it. The thing is it going to be consistent?
I'm sure we'll talk about it to a greater extent to end the show, but I think you can't talk about this win either without discussing what it does set up here in these next 4 weeks. You know, you've got Michigan State, who's on the ropes. You've got Purdue, who's not a very good team. You've got Northwestern, who's not a very good team. Maryland's a very winnable game on the road. And then you've got that Ohio State game at the end of the year. So this was such an important pivot point game for them where you respond to last week, you come out, you get a win. Whereas if it went the other way, you're sitting at 4-3. The season will have stagnated for a second year in a row. And at that point, then you start to wonder, are there cracks in the leadership? Are there factions on the team? Where does it go from there? So I don't think you can underrate this win enough for the pressure release that it is and what it does set up moving forward.
I will say too, I didn't get a chance to talk pregame about some of the thoughts going into this game, but with regard to Sharon Moore, I know there's been some coaching staff circulation, conversation, all that stuff. We're kind of at that point in the season. For me, you very rarely get an apples to apples comparison of a coaching staff versus another coaching staff, but this was an opportunity for that, for Ward Manuel to kind of evaluate, hey, Washington was in the same position in the college football playoff in 2023 when Jim Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy leave. They have Kalen DeBoer, Michael Penix leave. They had to rebuild from the same spot that we did. And so for me, what I was thinking is this is the make or break game for Sharon Moore and staff, because if Washington can come here in a back-to-back series and beat you in your place, and they had the same rebuild you did with arguably less talent, then they've done a better job. There's no doubt about it. It's as apples to apples as you're going to get. So for Sharon Moore, Wink Martindale, Chip Lindsey, and the coaching staff, when you say pressure release, I think that this was an absolute must-win game, whether or not it was labeled that way or not.
It 1000% was. And you talk about starting from a much better place than Washington had. The only player they had left from that national title team was the kicker. So Jed Fish, 1000% hitting the reset button completely. And this was big, just for proof of concept, just for where you at and where you're going. So we will talk offense, defense, take your questions, of course, like we do in all of our post-game shows. A little bit of housekeeping to do first up, though, and be remiss if we didn't, again, thank Ryan for hosting us here at a beautiful facility here at Blue Lion Fitness. What do you guys have going on around here?
This week and throughout the month of November, we're talking about getting more people in shape in older age demographics. You probably heard a lot about us working with sports and sports performance, specifically with athletes in the area. One of our favorite athletes we work with, CJ Carr, has been spinning it pretty well for the Notre Dame Irish. So one of the things that we're emphasizing is talking more with the 40, 50, 60-year-old clients. You'd be surprised how many of those clients are in here, how many of them have found success, and some of them would say they're in the best shape of their lives. They would kick the ass of their 20-year-old selves. So I think there's a misconception out there possibly that we are only for the college level or professional level athlete. You'd be surprised. Our mantra is professional sports training for any athlete. You walk through our doors, you will be treated as an athlete, whether you like it or not. So if you happen to know somebody in that 40, 50, 60-year-old age demographic, we're going to be running some promos. Tell them to check out Blue Lion and see if we can get them in here.
Wonderful. And while we're on this side of town, we're also brought to you today by our friends at Lewis Jewelers at 300 South Maple Road in Ann Arbor. We've been talking about them for years. Great partner to the Wolverine, great partner of Michigan Athletics. Simple question, guys. Do you need to upgrade your wife's ring? They are the folks to do it for you, or whether it's an engagement ring or whether it's getting a new ring for your wife, whatever you need. Lewis Jewelers has you covered since 1921. So visit them at 300 South Maple Road in Ann Arbor or online at lewisjewelers.com. And that's Lewis Jewelers. Let's start with, normally we start offense. I think last week we started defense. This week we'll start defense. What an incredible turn of the page for Wink Martindale in this group. And it's a group effort because, you know, you're down a couple guys in the secondary. Rod Moore didn't play today. A couple other guys were banged up. Just up front, I didn't think the defensive line played well last week. No one played well. It was front to back, a pretty bad showing for them. But to hold down the Washington offense the way that they did, 209 yards, 3 picks for Damon Williams. It's a guy people were comparing to Kyler Murray coming into this game. He ran for 136 yards last week. He ran for -19 in this game. Jonah Coleman, really good tailback, leads the nation in touchdown rushes. 16 carries, 50 yards. Denzel Boston, outside of a 48-yard bomb that wound up not meaning anything for Washington, he was held in check. 4 catches, 71 yards. So top to bottom, front to back, not 100% perfect. These games never are, but this was as impressive and encouraging a result as you could have hoped for today.
It's the standard in what you expect when you see a Michigan defense take the field. They're going to be dominant. They're going to make you one-dimensional and take away the run. And when you go to throw the ball, they're going to get after your quarterback and they're going to create turnovers. And that is exactly the script you saw from Wink Martindale in the defense today. They gave up 7 points early, but a shutout in the second half versus an offense that I think is as prolific and dynamic as Washington's offense is. There's a lot to be said there, especially in terms of maintaining that active and mobile quarterback. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We're breaking down the Washington win, but we go to Michigan State, and that'll be a tough game, and they got a guy at quarterback that I think can do some special things. Any playmaker at quarterback can be dangerous, but I feel like Michigan has done a good job and continue to do so today and kind of mitigating that scrambling quarterback and letting them extend plays and hurt you. I think one of the biggest things that I was taken away from this game was the run defense, because Washington has typically been able to run the football, not at will, but it's a part of their offense. They can run when they want. They can pass when they want. That's what makes them good. They had no opportunity to run the football today. And I think that that is something that when you talk about what's your response to last week's game, some of the big ripping runs that happened with USC, the defense, I think you take that personally. And you could kind of see that in the attitude that was displayed on the field. So the rushing defense was absolutely fantastic, which then in turn makes your passing defense that much better because they're one-dimensional. So in general, I think you had 3.5 quarters, almost every drive, a very successful and good outing for Wink Martindale's defense and promising, for what's left on the schedule.
I'm going to read Wisconsin's drive chart here. So in the first half, it was punt, field goal miss, punt. They get the touchdown late to tie the game at halftime. Second half drive chart. You ready for this? Punt, interception, turnover on downs, interception. I mean, that is what little success Washington did have in the first half. Michigan's defense and some of these drives too. I mean, coming out of halftime, 3 and out. The interception drive was the first play from scrimmage on that drive. 3 plays for 33 yards on the next interception. 4 plays for -8 yards on the next possession. And then the Jacob Oden interception where he's literally on his ass, literally. And talk about when it's your day, when an interception literally falls into your lap to close that out for Michigan. Just incredibly encouraging at all levels. I thought the linebacker play was much better today. It's easy to say when you have 2 linebackers that come down with interceptions, but I just thought that the eye discipline was better. I thought that the run wall up front was non-existent last week, as good as it could have been in this game today. Just I can't say enough about what those guys did. And we talked about the impact that Rod Moore was going to have when he came back. He didn't play today, played 46 snaps last week. I think he got a little bit banged up in the effort, but for the most part, their coverages, their communication, where they lined up was pretty darn good, Ryan.
Overall, they seemed like they were sharp. They were sharp. They were prepared. They were in good alignments. The USC game, you go back and watch, there's times where they're in empty and we're in like a shell too with both safeties, 17 yards off of the slot. And by alignment, we're in a position where there's a very low chance that we're going to succeed keeping them from gaining yards. So going forward into this game, this team looked like they were dialed in. You saw a lot of good coverage, I thought, that was zone, but also well matched, where Zeke Berry had a couple PBUs that were really nice and broken up. Jair Hill, I think, had a few too, but tight zones that were right on guys at the sticks, and awareness, knowing where they need to go, what they like to do. Hey, he's lined up outside. He's probably coming in. He's lined up inside the hash. He's probably going out, being ready for those cuts and then not getting beat. There was an out and up that they ran on a 3rd down early on that I thought that they maybe connect on for a touchdown. Nope. We stay right with it. So dialed. is the term that I would use. They were very dialed in on what they were supposed to be doing, and then they executed it with physicality, with violence, with aggressiveness. And that is the standard of Michigan defense. Someone specifically that I thought, you said the linebackers were playing well. Jimmy Roller got picked on last week. I think that Lincoln Riley found anything that stressed the will linebacker, circled it, and ran it, because putting him in space against the USC athletes was just working for them. So I think that you saw Washington try and borrow that a little bit and put him on island again, and he stepped up. And so I just wanted to give a shout out, because I thought he got picked on a little bit, but he's capable, and he did a very good job today. One thing that I do want to see a little bit more of in terms of linebacker, Barham. You know, he's a guy that people have found out how to get him not to be an impact in the game. And again, today, not a huge impact. And it's not him. It's just the teams are running away from him. So overall, great. There's still probably a little bit more, but this is where we should be in terms of our Michigan defense.
I'll be interested in seeing the pressure numbers when they come out, but only 2 sacks today. It felt like they were a lot more disruptive than that. Of course, some of that's mitigated by getting the ball out quick. You know, Washington likes to run the screen game, and Damon Williams there was at least 1 sack that was missed where I think Cam Brandt bounced off of him. But some of the counting numbers today, Jimmy Roller, 8 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, interception. Ernest Hausman has 7 tackles. Derek Moore, another great game. He had 2 sacks in this one. He also forced a fumble on that turnover on downs. We talked about the interceptions. Roller had 1. Cole Sullivan had 1. I think he leads the team in interceptions right now. Cole Sullivan just makes plays whenever he's out there. And then, of course, Jacob Oden gets his pick, sophomore defensive back. So clean, mostly clean box score here. Washington only possessed the ball for, I think it was 22 minutes in this game, 22 minutes, 31 seconds. So top to bottom, tip your cap. Any other thoughts on defense before we hand out a game ball?
Just be consistent. You know, this is a defense that I think that they've been capable of the entire season. The offense is the youngling that needs to get their legs underneath them and figure their shit out. And they are, but the defense should be solid, and it's something that we should be able to rely on. So love that this was the effort that we put forward. The fact that we still have what was last week kind of lingering going into East Lansing, an away game, home state, but away game. Let's see what we do on the road with our defense, because I'd like to see a little bit more consistency, but this is where we need to be.
Also, Jair Hill dropped a pick 6 today. It makes you want to tear your hair out, but he'll get picked on for that in film study. Got to have it. They left one of the opportunities in the first half where they leave points on the field. But for a game ball today, symbolically, it's everyone, but specifically it's Wink Martindale, a guy who, his system was called into question, his players' communication, their preparedness called into question. I thought dialed up a masterclass, and some of the biggest plays of the game, namely some of those interceptions, was when you weren't sending some of those exotic pressures. Those guys up front get home, linebackers make a play, and just that was extremely encouraging, because that's the type of performance you kind of saw it at Nebraska, but they let Nebraska hang around. This was front to back, I think, their best defensive performance of the year. And also only the first time against a Power 4 opponent this season where they haven't given up 70 or more yards on the opening drive. They got right off the field, which is a huge key for them too. So I give mine to Wink Martindale.
I'm going Derek Moore. You got to give it to a guy that gets 2 sacks in a game. You don't understand how hard it is to get a sack. I think it's misunderstood to have to beat 1, maybe 2 good linemen, then tackle one of the best athletes on the field, that is the quarterback. So to get 1 sack is hard enough. To get 2, to also force a fumble with that effort, and a countless number of other pressures that probably kept our coverage from being overextended. Derek Moore was a monster today, and they had to account for him every play.
Absolutely. Well, let's turn the page to the offensive side of the ball, which an imperfect day, 7 points at the half. Probably should have been more than that. Samaj Morgan dropped a 4th and 1 pass that could have been a touchdown. Not going to linger too much on that, because in the aggregate, 417 total yards. Jordan Marshall, incredible. 25 carries, 133 yards and a touchdown. Justice Haynes warmed up, did not play in this game. Bryce Underwood, again, a couple drop. I think they had 3 dropped. You counted the drops.
There were 3 in the first quarter. We were on pace for 12 for the game, but they cleaned it up. But I didn't count the defensive drops, so 3 offensive drops.
6 incompletions for Bryce Underwood today, with 3 of those being drops. There was at least one where he just had to throw it out of bounds too. 21 for 27, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, completes 78% of his throws. 7 carries for 25 yards. Not a huge factor in the run game, but he did have a 17-yard scramble somewhat late, and spread the ball around too. Zach Marshall, 5 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. Andrew Marsh, another solid game, 5 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Deacon Tonelli, that's a name we haven't heard all year, 3 catches, 38 yards. Marshall had 3 grabs. McCulley had 2 catches. Samaj Morgan had 2 catches. Channing Goodwin had 1. So we're seeing him spread the ball around. And what I thought was surprising is that we've been advocating for them to get the tight ends involved all year. Marlon Klein was out. Hogan Hansen wasn't on the availability report, but didn't dress it was out. They got the tight ends involved today using their 3rd and 4th string guys, which, hey, you know what? It's all hands on deck. But to me, that's almost Bryce Underwood taking a step and making the guys around him better too.
It's the development of Bryce Underwood for sure. This is his best day out. I think if you were to look at completion percentage, I think it's 78% completion percentage, which I believe is his best day at the office since putting on the Wolverine uniform. So he's obviously getting more comfortable. And that's also, with a freshman left tackle stepping in, which is a tough position to just come in and take over. So, really impressed and have been impressed with Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood's not the problem at Michigan in terms of the offense. The offense should be able to score 20 to 30 points a game regularly, I think, if they are creative with their play calling and they distribute the football like they did today. I think that the tight ends getting involved was huge, just even if it was even a smaller capacity, so that you have to honor them in coverages. I mean, that one touchdown that we had, it's a trick play, but he's not even covered. No one accounted for the tight end in the end zone. So I think it just makes your defense that you're playing that much more stressed when you have these options, even if you only show it every so often. In terms of the running game, I thought today you saw more dressing, more trim, more shift pre-snap than you've seen before. And who knows, maybe that's Chip Lindsey taking it easy on Bryce Underwood pre-snap so he can look at the safeties. Who knows why maybe that's not been rolled out. But now that we're here and kind of in a must-win game scenario, it's let's throw all the cards out and make sure we run an offense that we're proud of and can score. So I thought the offense moved the ball pretty much at will, and overall was a pretty good game plan. There's more there. There's definitely more meat on that bone. There's more season to be had. So as good as this was, I'd like to see more development and continue to build off of it. See if we can't capitalize on a few more of these drives that end up stalling. I think we're 6 for 13 on 3rd down. There's some areas that we can definitely improve offensively and be a little bit more efficient.
I think when it comes to Bryce, that was a very mature performance by him today. Just taking what the defense gives you, take your checkdowns, take the short throws, take the layups. Kind of a Jared Goffian performance, really. 21 to 27, 230 yards. He's getting better every week, and he can spin it. And there was the one he had on 3rd down where he's thrown off platform. He's off his back foot, and he zips it in there. I think it was to Tonelli. I'm not 100% certain on that, but there were discussions this week within the media about, at least a question that came up this week where Bryce Underwood's 18th in passing touchdowns, and he's 18th in completion percentage. What do you guys need to do to get him better, or where does he need to develop more? And I've been of the belief that I think the counting numbers with him haven't told the whole story. That said, I think today's do, with how mature, how composed a performance it was. There was the play where I think he lost a couple yards on a scramble where he should have just thrown the ball away. That's a freshman mistake. Next year, I'll call that a boneheaded mistake. But in the here and now, like, we're seeing this guy grow up, and they are so close to a game where they put 40 on someone. I think the margins are really thin there for them to do that very soon.
I do. I think they're missing a 10th of a second here, a 10th of a second there, a 10th too early or a 10th too late. We miss this block. We don't hold it just long enough to get him enough time to see that develop downfield. We're right there. We're scoring 24 points on a pretty good defense without converting on those opportunities. And I do think that we will convert on those opportunities as we continue to grow. Let's talk a little bit about the youth of the offense. I mean, especially with some of the exits that you had. I mean, if you're looking around between freshmen and redshirt freshmen out there, I believe 7 of the 11 at some point are all young guys. So think about the youth and what they're doing. I don't know if I ever saw 6 freshmen when I played football on the same unit or platoon. So I mean, yeah, there's more to be excited about, but I also don't want to ride them too hard. Like, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. We don't need to be aggressive and take shots downfield. We don't need to throw jump balls to Donovan McCulley for 2-point conversions that don't make any sense. Like, we will get there. And this was a great stepping stone to there.
Yeah. I think part of it too is, you can't speed run your way through development when you have that many. I had that same thought today where there was at one point they were lined up and I'm like, outside of Max Bredesen and Gio El Hadi and Donovan McCauley, I'm like, all these guys are going to be here next year. So this is obviously you want to get as good as you can now because the opportunity you have ahead of you leading up to that Ohio State game is massive. But this is equity in the future too, especially, obviously at the quarterback position, but Jordan Marshall, if you can lean on him for 25 carries in a game, his performance reminded me a lot of that bowl game against Alabama, just the tough yards, got everything he could, fell forward. Andrew Marsh takes steps forward. Zach Marshall will be here next year. Deacon Tonelli hasn't been much of a name, but he steps up and makes plays, and we'll see what happens with some of these other guys here. But yeah, just really impressed. I thought they did a great job possessing the football too. 37-29 in terms of time of possession on the game. The best thing you can do for your defense is keep an explosive offense like that off the field. And when that defense runs on the field and there's juice in the building and they're a little more fresh, the ripple effects it has when you can just possess I know we want to see the 40 points and Bryce Underwood throwing for 300 yards, but when you can sustain drives, and let me look at Michigan's drive chart, just about every drive they had in this game went almost 4 minutes, some of them 5 minutes. There weren't like the long, sustained big boy 6, 7, 8 minute drives, but when they had the ball, they had how many 3-and-outs in the day? 2 of them. Like they stayed on the field, they moved the chains, they did their part. 23 first downs to 14 for Washington. Just incredibly impressed. I thought Chip Lindsey was in his bag today as well.
Well, let's also talk about when we're talking about youth and freshmen, 0 turnovers. That's something that I feel like is not being talked about enough. Bryce Underwood and how he takes care of the football, not just him, but everybody on the offense has done a great job, at least today. And typically, even if we're not scoring points, they do take care of the football, which, again, I go back to them being young. I can't imagine being a captain of a Michigan defense and going and get the ball in a tight game in the fourth quarter and being like, all right, freshies, go get us our touchdown. No way. Why are we giving it to freshmen? But that's where we're at, And so it's, to me, you got to take a step back. You got to take a breath, and you got to realize that these 5, 6 freshmen are in game 7, and Chip Lindsey's in year 1, and they are 1/10 late, 1/10 early, missing 1 block. It's frustrating as hell. I get it. I'm a fan with you guys, but this group has some really good young talent and a core of young talent that'll do more this year, but there's a lot to be excited about what returns from this young group.
Offensive line, I thought, was really good in the game. Now, it sucks. You lose Evan Link at left tackle. He's carted off the field. I assume done for the year. Blake, what did you see from Blake Frazier, who came another redshirt freshman, to your credit? He's probably one of those 6 you were talking about, but what did you make of his performance out there?
So I saw Taylor Lewan pregame, and me and him had a lot of good battles as practice players. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I had the toughest practice route of anybody in the history of college football. I came in as the demonstration player for Jake Long and then was the groomer for Taylor as he became a left tackle. So tell me a defensive end that had harder practices than me, and I'd like to know who you went against. But we were talking, when 7-7 goes on the field, that's a big number. That's one of those numbers at Michigan. You don't get to wear that number without having some sort of moxie, some sort of special characteristic. So when you see him go in there, I have expectations by the number that he's going to be able to get the job done. And I think early he looked just a little bit shocky that he was there.
He got blown up on his first snap.
Yeah, he didn't look ready. Was it the 4th down to Samaj? Is that the first?
I think so.
Yeah. So for being critical play, come in and, so. But after that, he got his feet, he laced him up a little tighter, got a little air in the helmet, and he played good ball. And in general, I feel like you get a left tackle freshman, that could completely compromise your game plan. I don't think we compromised the game plan. The play sheet didn't change. We kept running our stuff, and he was able to get in where he fits in and not show up as a guy that was a backup. So even better that we're getting more reps with younger guys. Not great that Evan Link is out, but I thought he did really well considering the circumstances.
Yeah, and Blake Frazier, a legacy guy too. So not only you wearing 77, but you are son of a former Michigan football player. So that standard even higher there. GoBlue 982 for $5. And again, if you want to bring the show to a stop to get a question answered, use that super chat button below. You're not bringing it to a stop. Please utilize the function as much as you see fit. GoBlue 982 for $5 says, glad to see Michigan play like Michigan again. Did the offensive line look better without Link. I'm not going there, but just in totality, what did you think of the performance?
Depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about run blocking or pass pro, there's two different opinions that I have. Run blocking, one of my biggest concerns is I don't think we're a bad run blocking team. I think there's certain schemes that don't fit our guys and what they're best at. I think we are best when we combo to backer and run that style of blocking scheme. When we go zone and you just have to go to the guy to your left, I think if you have one weak link, no pun intended, in the chain, you're going to have some issues. And so when we combo block and we gap, I feel like we do a lot better than we just zone. And the run blocking today, I thought you were really creative. Bredesen had some split zone where he came back and trapped the tackle. You had a lot of shift pre-snap. You had Samaj and come back behind in like an orbit motion and be ready for like a triple option look. You had Bryce Underwood pull it enough to make them. The biggest thing that I saw like with USC is that there was not enough in the run game to not let all 11 guys cue in on the run. They know where the ball is going. If you can get 3 guys to commit to Bryce and maybe some other action on the other side, now you're playing 8-on-8. And so I saw more of that today, which benefits the offensive line. So therefore they were better in run blocking. Pass pro, meh. I think pass pro has been very average. It's a place where we got to improve. I don't think Bryce Underwood has all day to throw. I could be wrong, but I feel like he has one read and then he's down, and that's kind of how he has to operate. That's one area where we got to see some improvement, because that is at best, I'd call it average. Hard to say it's above average.
Has a chance to get better, but I don't even know if they play their best, that they have that standard Michigan gear that we're used to this year. I think that could be coming, but again, solid workmanlike effort. That's not a great Washington defensive front. They did get one of their better players back today, but overall, I thought offensive line was solid. I'll have to go back on rewatch there. Just skimming through the box score here. Any other thoughts? I mean, we haven't really parked on Jordan Marshall. I talked a little bit earlier how that felt like the bowl game, but Justice Haynes down. You need to lean on this guy. He gives you 25 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown. And his longest run was 14 yards. So these were 25 carries of body blows and maxing out every possible yard you could get. I was extremely impressed. And it's nice to know that if one of those guys does go down, like we know what Justice Haynes is, but if you do have to have a game where you lean on Jordan Marshall, like some of those games in 2021 where Blake Corum's hurt, you got to lean on Hassan Haskins. They've got that in their bag with Jordan Marshall, and he was very impressed with him.
He's someone that has not probably gotten the opportunities to demonstrate what he's capable of because of the emergence of Justice Haynes. And talk about a guy who's unselfish. Every time I've seen a camera or microphone in front of him, he talks about how grateful he is that Justice Haynes is a part of the program, how they work with one another so well. And I believe it. I think it's genuine. I think it's authentic. And that's a real valuable thing to have in the locker room, are guys who are of the same position that share statistics that actually are rooting for one another. That's tough to get. I have kind of been of the opinion, even with the emergence of Justice Haynes and before the injury, that it kind of got too much one back with him and too much emphasis on him. He's a guy that is definitely capable of 15, 20 carries a game, but I also feel like you overuse him, you run the risk of injury, and now you don't have your home run hitter, which is kind of where we are now. I think when he gets healthy, I'd like to see a better mixture and better usage of Justice Haynes in the appropriate positions and Jordan Marshall in the appropriate positions, and using them in balance to make sure that the workload is balanced. And then, being efficient. Use Justice Haynes when you got a defense tired and you're trying to hit home runs. Use Jordan Marshall when you're trying to grind out 3 to 4, because he will get you 3 yards even if you don't block anybody. So I want to see more of the 1-2 punch. Hopefully Justice Haynes can get back, and you can see that part of the offense as we get into the later part here.
And those types of runs soften up a defense too, where you have a safety tired and then he over pursues or under pursues, and Justice Haynes is gone 70 yards. So these guys can still complement each other, even when there is the hot hand, when both of them are back. I want to address this point from Kellen Sandifer, who says, I'm thinking we should run more, period. By the fourth quarter, Marshall was still running strong. Offensive balance, 27 passes, 40 runs. I mean, you get any more runs than that, we're talking, meat and potatoes, Jim Harbaugh football, which some people, I'm fine with it when it works, when the game calls for it. But do you think they could run more?
You could, but I don't think that I would want to. I thought that there was a great balance today prior to the game kind of being in hand and up 3 or 2 scores there at the end. I think that one of the most important elements to keep our offense as a successful and efficient unit is keeping our first down play calling balanced. It cannot be 70% run on first down. And if it is, other teams are going to know, and it's going to result to you being at 2nd and 9s and then 3rd and 6s, which you're behind the sticks. I thought today you saw a great balance of pass and run, and the passing game wasn't all that explosive or attractive, but there were some concepts. You saw some mesh. You saw some good pick routes against man. You saw some good concepts that we hadn't seen earlier on in the season. So to me, I was really impressed and encouraged by the balance on first down play calling, because I'd be willing to bet if you analyze just first downs prior to like the 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter, I bet you it was pretty close to 50-50.
They used to call them tendencies. Now they call them analytics. It's all one and the same now, right? Offensive game ball. I was really impressed by the game that Bryce Underwood played. I'm going to give mine to him. Again, a Jared Goffian. I'm going to write that a few times and people will get annoyed with me saying it, but needed to see more of him just taking what the defense gave him. And I was really impressed with that. Who gets your game ball today?
I'm going with Jordan Marshall. The guy has been in waiting and been patient and been ready, and he carried us in an Alabama game. He carried us to this victory. If you're a Michigan fan and you're not a Jordan Marshall fan, I really don't know what you're doing.
I just posted in the chat to get your questions, and now there is plenty of room for that still. So full queue is wide open for you. You don't need to send us a super chat. We would love if you did, but we will get to our questions segment here in just a moment. First, we'll talk about our friends over at BRUNT Workwear. Ryan and I were talking before about house projects. Last Saturday, I was working on a project outside, and for some reason I had to go to the basement. And I walk into the basement. Right off the bottom step, I splash into an inch of water. Well, I got a water mess to clean up in my basement. So what am I going to do? I'm going to throw on my work boots. And I just got my BRUNT work boots in the mail a couple weeks ago. So BRUNT, I can't show them to you here because they are at home, but they were comfortable right out of the box. It was the first time I had used them. Comfortable right out of the box. You know, most other boots, you got to break them in. You got blisters. You got all that. Had none of those issues with BRUNT. They're not just about work boots, offering a full range of high-performance gear built for tough jobs, from heavy-duty work pants to weather-resistant jackets. BRUNT designs are durable, reliable workwear to help keep you protective in any condition. So BRUNT was tired of the workwear brands cutting corners, and quite frankly, so am I. I hate those blisters you get when you get those work boots right out of the box. So you work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots, guys. And so they built something better. Boots that are comfortable. They're built for any job. And so for a limited time, our listeners can get $10 off at BRUNT when you use the code Wolverine at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com, use the code Wolverine, and you're good to go. After you order, they're going to ask you where you heard about BRUNT. Do us a favor and tell them it was from the Wolverine postgame show at thewolverine.com. So use that promo code Wolverine to get $10 off at brunt.com. All right, now it is time for our weekly Q and Egg segment. We're going to start with this one from Matt Popovitz. Hope I pronounced that right, Matt. He says, why did Rodmore sit? It sounds like he was a bit banged up coming out of the USC game. I was kind of surprised last week that he played the amount of snaps that he did. It had been, I think, 18 snaps and then 21 snaps. And then last week, I think the plan kind of went out the window, and all of a sudden he plays 46 snaps. And maybe I'm speculating here. I'm thinking there was some soreness that came out of that. It doesn't seem like anything that is a long-term concern, maybe not even a next week concern. Sharon Moore talked about it at his post-game press conference. I'll get you an update when I'm actually able to scroll to it, but it seemed like it was precautionary. I believe the safeties who got the start today were Jaden Mangum and Mason Curtis. Brandon Hillman didn't play this game either. He warmed up, and both he and Rodmore were in uniform and then came out of the locker room second half in sweatpants and regular clothes. So not sure what's going on there with either of those guys, but that is what is going for us. KT Travel says, what does this staff see with Samaj? Love the kid, needs to grab some bench. I don't want to dog on guys after a win. 6 drops now, almost good for one a game. It's a critical one on 4th and 1. I know a lot of velocity on it, but you got anything there? I'm trying to be kind about it. I'm a Samaj guy. He's a good kid, comes from a great family. You just got to catch the football, man.
I have been pretty vocal, and I have nothing personally against Samaj Morgan. I bet you he's a great teammate. I bet you he brings guys up around him. He seems like he's got a great personality, all of these things, and I think he's probably a tremendous human being. With that being said, I do not understand and have not understood the emphasis to get him the football and get him targets on offense. I understand the position, right? There's the little shifty slot that every team has nowadays that, in space, you can't tackle him and he's just too much faster than everybody else. And I just don't think Samaj is that guy. I think he looks like that guy, but I don't think he performs like that high performing slot that you think he's going to be. And I don't dislike him. There's some things that he did well today. He did a really good job picking out some receivers, DBs that were on him on man when I talked about the pick routes. Samaj did some really good acting where he pretended like he was running a route, but really wasn't, and was trying to take the corner off the guy so that you could run free. And he did a really good job with that. And that's a role player. That's something that I think Samaj can do. But I'm with you, whoever made that comment. I'm with you. I don't understand the force feeding of Samaj Morgan. It almost feels like a coach's kid situation. And it bothers me because I think that there are other guys. There's only so many targets and so many opportunities. I think there are other guys that are on Michigan sideline that might do more with those opportunities, but I don't know who they are. So I default to Sharon and Chip Lindsey, but I do not understand the targets that are consistently given Samaj's way.
Yeah, it's 4 targets today, so not like an unforgivable amount, but then you see Donovan McCulley, who we've seen over the last couple weeks make some really big plays. He has 2 catches for 21 yards on 3 targets. That's a guy they need to get now. And he had a tough one-on-one today. Washington's corner, Takario Davis, is a guy that Michigan had interest in the portal this offseason. Goes and plays for his old head coach, Jed Fish at Arizona, makes his way to Washington. So, again, he was an emphasis in their game plan. But got to find ways to get Donovan McCulley. I'm less about dogging guys for getting the opportunities they are and more. Let's get this guy that's playing well more opportunities. And because let's call it what it is at this point, that wide receiver depth chart is fairly thin, especially now that Fred Moore is transferred out. So I don't know where those other targets, those other opportunities go to, but again, I hope they continue to feed Andrew Marsh, feed Donovan McCulley. When Marlon Klein's back, get him involved. Some of the Hogan Hansen, if he gets back, get him involved. Get the tight ends involved like they did today. Those guys had 12 targets. So I think that's where we're at with the target distribution. Brian Block says, looked like Michigan gave up on stretch. Was it game and personnel specific?
I would say personnel specific. Yeah. I don't think Jordan Marshall's a guy that's going to get you a lot from stretch. I think what you saw them do, which is a smart adjustment, is try to get Bryce a little bit more involved. I thought you saw some true read option today, which was exciting, where I think that he was actually reading it for whatever reason. Seems like Bryce Underwood has a better mesh with, remind me, the freshman running back that got some time today.
Jasper Parker.
For whatever reason, Bryce and Jasper seem to have a better ball handling connection. Like, I couldn't tell who kept the ball when he does it with him, but I can see it with Jordan Marshall. And I can see it with Justice Haynes, but for whatever reason, I cannot see it when they do it. And that was something that I noticed, that Juice Williams was like that back for Illinois. There was a guy that was a running back that I swear they ran together for 3 yards before they figured out who had it. And it was so frustrating, but the stretch wasn't there. So you see a little bit of creativity and how they get the outside attacked. That's one thing I thought that they did a good job. There's only so many plays, right? You have how many offensive plays today? 70 offensive plays. 28 of them are passes. So when Samaj Morgan gets 5 targets out of 25 passes, well, he's really 25% of the 20% of the offense. That's where I get confused about the targets and stuff like that, and why we're going there. But in general, I feel like offensively, they utilized the personnel as efficiently with what they had, people out. They utilized the personnel as efficiently as they could have to produce what they produced today. And that's why I'm happy with it.
Also, I mean, the 4th and 1 play call, that was a drop. Excellent call. Like exactly what you would want.
Wide open.
It's wide open. You got to make that play. So any other thoughts on the offense today? Again, they ran 68 plays, 6.1 yards per play. Overall,
I just want to talk about the no risk of turnover. Tell me one time where you went because they risked it. Not once. That's something that I feel like is going under the radar, that is not being appreciated enough. And I want to pound this table. Like, think about how amazing it is that you have an offense full of freshmen that do not risk the football.
Yeah.
That is an amazing thing to have as a part of your team. There are things you want from this offense, sure. But the fact that they do not turn the ball over, or at least didn't today, and have kind of a streak going, I think that's an underappreciated element of what Chip Lindsey's doing, Bryce Underwood's doing, what the play calling and Sharon Moore is doing. They are doing a great job protecting the football, and that's something we should appreciate, I think, a little more.
I agree with you. Michigan GoBlue 1234 asks, thoughts on the Michigan State game next week? I just checked the score of Michigan State, Indiana. It's 21-10 Indiana at the half. I assume that Psycho Sig is going to run the score up in the second half. That is a Michigan State team that, assuming they do get blown out or even just losing at Indiana, they are on the ropes. I don't think, like, Jonathan Smith is very close to getting fired. I really think at this point, the only thing that gives him any oxygen is winning that game next weekend. And it's a cliche. You throw the records out, it's 0-0. The records don't matter, all of that stuff. They don't have it up front on either side of the ball. Aiden Childs, I heard a radio, and I'm not taking a shot, I'm just saying, I heard a radio host say before the year, gosh, if Michigan got the play out of Bryce Underwood this year that Michigan State got out of Aiden Childs last season, my God, you'd take it, right? But Aiden Childs is a turnover machine and hasn't really fixed that. It doesn't know how to slide and isn't protected very well. They don't have a great run game. So I need to see that same defensive effort next week, because I don't think Michigan State's not even remotely close to as explosive offensively as Washington is. And then their defense, I mean, we saw USC put up 45 on them. They went to overtime against Boston College, who I think is a 1-4, 1-5 football team. Boston College put up 40 points on them. We talk about these spots. You circle these spots where this offensive breakout could occur. I'll be honest with you. I could see next week being like a 40-10 type of game.
I feel more comfortable after today, because I was curious how we'd handle a quarterback that has the mobility that you're going to see out of Childs and what they can do to extend the play. So seeing how the 4-man rush, the 5-man rush, we got to a lot of pressures without pressure, without bringing extra guys. So to me, that's really encouraging that, when we go into East Lansing, we're going to have guys that I don't think they're going to do a great job blocking. And if you have to pass, which they're going to have that element, they're going to have a hard time, I feel like, getting any time to do that. So you make them one-dimensional, and you make them try to run the football against our defense the way we've done run defense all aside from the USC game. I feel pretty confident that they are going to really struggle to get the ball across the white line and score points. They're going to have to win on field goals, because I don't know how many touchdowns Michigan State's going to score. So I feel pretty good. It's going to be about our execution, and do we come out and play the style of football that we've had. That's the one thing that worries me the most about this team is the youth. I feel like on any given day, you can have today's product on the field, and then tomorrow USC's team could show up. And it's the same 11 on each side of the ball. It's just a different approach, different mentality, different preparedness. That's something that you feel like you get a little bit more risk with when you have a young team. So young team rivalry game, it's going to be about how do they execute early, and are they going to be consistent? Because Michigan State, it will be their Super Bowl. This will be the biggest game that their players have, their coaches have, everything, all the eggs are in for them. So expect to get their best effort and to have to fight them off. But we should be able to get this one, bring this one home. Paul Bunyan stays with us.
I think so. And I can say on paper, it looks like a 40-14, whatever, but this is a Michigan team that all season, even today, for as impressive as it was, games have been closer than they should be because of some of those self-inflicted wounds. So you want to execute. You don't want to put yourself in a spot where, hey, if you drop a pass, that could completely swing the game. Drop a pick six, and all of a sudden Michigan State hits on a big, because I do think they have, Inchild still has talent, and they have speed at wide receiver. Michigan's corners have been susceptible at times to double moves and shots down the field, especially with some of those guys banged up. So it's not a slam dunk, but at the same time, this is a bottom 4, bottom 5 team in the Big Ten they're going to play. And I assume that once Indiana closes this thing out, it's going to be a lot of Michigan fans in that building next week too, because Spartan fans are checked out and they want their coach fired. So let's use that as a springboard to talk about, we talked earlier about the runway that a win like this can allow for. And if we can bring the schedule up on the screen real quick. for our viewers at home. Michigan next week, like we said, they're going to go play at Michigan State. A week after that, they get Purdue at home. Purdue, another one of those bottom 3, bottom 4 type of Big Ten teams. Much better coached than Michigan State. I think Barry Odom's a good coach. You'll get a bye after that. You're going to go play Northwestern at Wrigley Field. They're scrappy, but that's going to be a pro-Michigan environment, I think. Maryland, they look like Maryland, where they start out hot and then taper off in Big Ten play. But, at times this year, Michigan hasn't played well enough to say that's just a rubber stamp shoe-in victory. And then you've got that final exam to end the year, which if you handle your business in these next 4 games, you could be playing for a spot in the Big Ten championship game. That's not off the table at all. So that is, we talked earlier, that's the difference between getting this win today and losing today, was that if you found a way to get past what I think is a good Washington team that will probably win 7, 8, 9 games still, you're going to have a chance to do something special. And these young guys, I think these next 4 games are a great opportunity for these young guys to iron out some of those peaks and valleys against teams that simply just aren't very good.
I'm very excited about what this season still could hold for us. And I am maybe old school or just different in my thought process of I don't even want to look ahead to the Ohio State game in November football, because Michigan State is a rivalry game, and as maybe lopsided as it may appear on paper, that's a big one. And if you lose any of the 4 that lead up to that game means a lot less, So one game at a time. I see this as an opportunity for 5 weeks of continued improvement and building off of this game. Forget everything that happened before that, because if you can go undefeated from this point on, I don't know that you couldn't potentially be in a playoff, could potentially win a national championship.
A 10-win Michigan team is in the playoff.
Right. So you go undefeated from this point forward, and you've started your playoff record. October 17th is when playoffs started for Michigan, and they just keep rolling. And do I think that they match up with Ohio State well if they had to play tomorrow? No, I don't think we match up well enough with them yet. But I will say this. There are no people on that Ohio State team that I know of that know what it feels like to beat a Michigan team. They know what it feels like to be favored. They know what it feels like to go all 13 weeks with everybody from ESPN saying, oh, they're the juggernauts. They're going to go to Ann Arbor. They're going to beat them. Michigan has a chance not only to spoil their season like they did last year, potentially, which wasn't the worst spoiler, but they didn't go to the Big Ten championship. Not only that, but we could also project ourselves to where we want to go. So I'll tell you what, I don't want to be Ryan Day and be Ohio State and watch Michigan go 4-0 and come into Ann Arbor. So you want to build up the atmosphere. You want to create an environment where all the excitement for your season is there at the end of the year. Win the next 4 games, and let's see what happens at noon. When we get into that game. But you got to build from here. You got to get better from now until then. Otherwise, there will be no competition when we get there.
There are always exceptions to it, but obviously Ohio State's rival number 1. But I've always said you can never overlook the importance of that Michigan State game, because you're playing for the right for your game against Ohio State to have the maximum possible stakes to it by getting that rivalry win, by handling your business, by keeping Paul Bunyan in Schembechler Hall. That's what I don't say it's been a concern, but there have been times, and it goes beyond this year, it even goes into last year, where Michigan gets a win. Maybe you get a little too high on your own supply, and next week is a bit of a come down. Would love to see them use this as momentum and take it into a game next week where I think you have a chance to truly hammer those guys like you haven't hammered anyone this year to that point. So we'll see what happens. The win keeps all of your goals ahead of you. I want to take this super chat here before we close it out. This is from Steve. He says the defense played great, but can Wink stop blitzing so much? It has hurt us a lot, especially on long distances. That's my biggest gripe with Wink Martindale. Not so much the blitzing, but these long down and distance plays that wound up being conversions. I mean, it was the play of the game last week. Had a couple of those plays in this game today that didn't wind up mattering, but what do you think? Is it the blitzing thing? Is it execution? How would you respond to that question?
I think it's preparedness a little bit in terms of if you're going to pressure, bring 5, bring 6, you've got to be really sharp in what you relate to if you're a coverage guy. So if you're not one of the guys that's added into the pressure, you got to know that my responsibility is to be between 2 and 3, no deeper than 5 yards, no deeper than 10 yards. And you got to be on that. And there's been times that I feel like because of when the ball is delivered on time for the offense, that that means that defensively we didn't get into the right position or we had a bad call, one of the two. But I've kind of leaned into, there's been times where we are 3 yards out of position, and if we would have been in position, that tackle, maybe they make the play, but the tackle happens before the first down is gained. And I feel like those are those things. I use the adjective dialed. That's the dialed that I saw today. Guys were caught when a ball was caught, they were impacted immediately. And to me, that is good defense. Even if they gain yardage, they didn't score points. So I don't think Wink needs to blitz less. I think that we need to be sharper when we blitz and maybe understand a little bit more of our assignments. But again, we're young, we're getting it figured out, not as much on the defense, but overall, it'd be hard to take any shots at Wink Martindale performance today. Today was a very well called game. They were very well prepared, and they did a tremendous job against a good Washington team.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if it's 3rd and 16 and you make a play where it's 4th and 4 instead of 4th and 1 or a first down pickup, those you can live with the yards you give up if you're getting off the field. So they just need to get off the field more. It's a little surface level to say that, tackle better, get off the field more, but that's literally
what was their third down conversion? Out of curiosity, what did we hold them to today?
Let's see.
I bet you it was under 40.
5 of 12.
I can't do that. 42.5%.
Something like that. Yeah. 1 for 2 on 4th down. They only had 14 first downs. So you weren't getting into, you had the 3 drives where they didn't even get to 3rd down because they turned over the football. But overall, made plays when you had to, got off the field today. Any other final thoughts before we get out of here? We talked about Michigan State, talked about the road ahead. It's an impressive win. Again, like you said, hit the nail on the head, meat on the bone still. But to get a 17-point win against what I think is a quality Washington team, very impressed with that. Very happy with how both sides of the ball looked in the aggregate. Onward, upward. Let's build from here. This is good, but this doesn't get you what we're talking about, which is a win in November. There has to be development and growth from here and flush whatever has happened before this, because this is a great place to kind of build and go to the end of the season with this being the starting block. This is a situation, again, tailor-made for them to, like we said, the upward trajectory. Maybe you don't win that Ohio State game. That's the goal, but maybe you're like that 2015 Michigan team that you had a couple losses early, you rallied in the second half of the year, and you played for the right for your game against Ohio State to mean something. And it did mean something. So that's what's on the line this year. A lot for a young team to experience, to grow from, a lot of things to clean up still, but you'd rather clean up stuff from a win than whatever last week was. Guys, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We don't know a kick time for next week yet, so we don't 100% know what our post-game dynamic will be yet. They will announce the Michigan State kick time, I believe, probably around 10 or 11 p.m. tonight when some of these other games wrap up. I hope it's not a night game because I'm tired of playing Michigan State under the lights, but we'll see what happens there. And then, of course, we'll be with you all week at the Wolverine with plenty of coverage from press conferences, recruiting, basketball seasons in full swing. Use that promo code as well. UM1 gets you 2 months of access to our site for a single $1. Now that's going to get you almost to Christmas time. So you're going to get the in-season intel. You're going to get the National Signing Day intel. You're going to get the Ohio State Week intel, the basketball intel. This is it's an incredible, like we are losing money on this deal. It is our goal to make money, but we are willing to get you in the door, and you won't leave once you are. So use that promo code UM1 to get in on our site. For Ryan Van Bergen here at Blue Lion Fitness, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broome. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.